Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Overcoming Adversity. We are in season 3. It's called The Next Episode, Hey, Yay, Yay, Yay. like my boy, Dr. Dre. I'm Amanda Marino. I'm here with my co-host,
Sarah Frias.
and we have an awesome guest today. It's actually the only person we've had to reschedule, and we've had to reschedule you more than once.
Yeah, it's okay.
But he's dedicated.
He's dedicated.
He's dedicated.
He's like,
I take it
what's
personally.
going on? Okay, well, we really want to have you on. I swear, Ben. There's no tea. And but Ben is just, you came into my life, kind of by accident, bringing a client my way that you thought was a good fit just because of things you had heard from people. And it turned into like a friendship, and a partnership where we would trust you with our family members. We trust you with, any client. Just think you're an awesome guy. I love your dry sense of humor.
Yes.
I think you just you're young, but you have like an old soul, and you just have a lot to offer. So I'm super excited to have you.
Me too.
Your gym buddy.
He's my gym
Yeah.
buddy. Yeah,
Yeah.
he takes pictures of me when I'm not looking. I take pictures of him when he's walking in. It's pretty creepy if anybody saw my
Yeah.
picture roll because it just pictures of Ben just walking into the gym. Like casually. So it looks like I'm a stalker, but I'm not.
Yeah, people would think too, because I'll snipe pictures of you from like
Up
the
on the
first floor
treadmill,
while you're
yeah.
on the treadmill. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's our way of saying hi, basically. Yeah.
So introduce yourself. Like, who are you? What do you do?
Well, I appreciate the kind words. Ben Taratuta, LMHC therapist in Boca Raton, and I agree. I think, like you said, we just kind of. Like on our update calls or on the calls that we would talk about the client, that was however many years ago at this point that it was, we would always have like extra conversation too. And I think that did spurn into, me enjoying working with you guys and also seeing what you guys do, which is really cool. I think you guys, in terms of like your belief system about mental health, recovery, all of that, I think really aligns with mine as well. And so I think that was kind of also the start of just a lot of us seeing, you all being good fits and me being good fits with mutual clients.
And you used to be invited to Cabana Days, but now that you didn't show up, you're not invited.
It was one time.
anymore.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
I'm just
Yeah,
kidding. I'm just
yeah.
kidding. You do have like a wedding and stuff and like, a life and clients.
It was also immediately after the holidays.
It was the worst.
It was
We
a
picked
bad
the word.
time.
Yeah, it was
We
a bad
picked
day.
It was a cold day.
It was
I
a
don't need
beautiful day
excuses.
out. No,
but-
it was gorgeous.
Okay.
It wasn't that. It was just January 3rd. Not
No one wants to hang
Yeah.
out.
We're like, we wait till after the holidays, so we are supportive of people. Yeah, but you don't do it January 3rd.
No, yeah. We learned. It's okay.
So what's an LMHC for anyone who doesn't know? So we have to envision that anyone listening has no idea.
Fair enough. So LMHC, licensed mental health counselor, which means that I had to get a master's after my undergraduate degree. My master's was in mental health counseling. And then after I finished my master's, 2 years of supervision, and then I became licensed. And so LMHC is different state to state. Florida, it's LMHC. In New Jersey, it's like LPC, and
Yeah, there's so different names.
there's different ones for everyone. And then there's social work, which is LCSW. And so that's reciprocity or whatever the fancy word
Yeah.
is all over the country. But for whatever reason, mental health, it's different state to state.
Yeah, that's the thing don't think that most people realize. That's why, like, I always am, when people are like, oh, you think you're you're pretending you're a therapist. No, I never say I'm a therapist, ever do. Anywhere on my pages does it say that, because I really respect how much you all go through. Yes, I have trained in a lot of different things, but I did not get a master's degree, and I did not do 2 years of, supervision and like apprenticing, like you guys. So I really, really respect it. I don't think people realize what you have to go through to be a licensed therapist and to maintain your license.
Yeah, I didn't realize either. Like halfway
So you're
through,
in
I
it.
was like,
You're like,
damn,
this is a lot.
Yeah, this is a lot. And even in terms of like the maintenance of it, I know my CEUs are due end of
those are
March,
fun.
so I'm
Yeah.
gonna cram those as much as I can.
Everybody
in the
always
next few
crams them.
weeks.
No
Yeah.
one ever does them when
Like
they're
the
supposed
CIP
to.
ones that I have.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Sarah loves that.
Oh, yeah, I love those.
Every 2 years. So we were talking about Ben's like, oh, we'll talk about whatever you want. And I said, no, Ben, you have one job. You got to pick the
That's
topic.
it, yeah.
So what's your topic, Ben?
The topic that I'd like to talk about, I think, is childhood trauma. I think it's an interesting topic. I think there's so much overlap and interwovenness, if that's even,
Yeah, no, that
we'll
sounds
run
good.
with
Yeah,
it.
I like
Yeah,
that.
we make up our own words here.
Yeah,
At
I think
Overcoming
there's an
Adversity.
interwovenness with it in terms of mental health, recovery. I think so much of what we see down here in South Florida, especially Palm Beach County, I think, especially as we all know, there's just every day an influx of people coming here for recovery, and you're seeing all these things. And just having worked at a treatment center and kind of really, seeing that side of things, and now having my own practice, I think childhood trauma is something that a lot of people, I think, relate to.
It is. It's so wild that so much stems back to that. So I see two different things. Like I see people either minimizing their trauma, like, oh, everybody goes through things. People have gone through far worse than me, or people like very much like it overconsumes them. Like, do you see that?
Yeah. And I like the first thing that you said, where a lot of people minimize. And I think I always use funny inappropriately, but I think one of the funny things is they'll have like so much has happened to them in their life. And then they'll talk about it in session, normally in like the first or second session, like, oh, but everyone kind of, and I'm like, no. Or I don't care about the line I normally say to clients, I don't care about everyone else, I care about you. Yeah. And so that's kind of a remarkable story that you just said, and to just kind of play it off that everyone goes through it is the minimization of it. And I think that's probably what I see more than people being difficulty with moving past, is more so the minimization of it.
That's interesting. See, I went from one to the other to like now I think a healthier place. Like I believe that because of what I went through, that I was meant to be messed up. I was meant to have a messed up life, and I'm lucky I wasn't worse, and kind of just chalked it was my excuse. And then it became like, okay, well, it's not that big of a deal. And then now it's like, no, I'm going to own that it was awful, but I'm not going to, and when it does come back up, because it comes back up, right? It doesn't just, I used to think you've dealt with your trauma and you put it in a little box and it
goes away, yeah.
And then I realized, oh, no, that doesn't work like that. Like, you have to continue to work on it. And then when it comes up, though, I know what to do,
Right. So. And I think that's what's interesting is a lot of people that minimize it, when we start putting the pieces together in sessions, they realize how much it affects the way they interact in the world and the way that they view themselves, where it's like, oh, well, everyone kind of experiences, I'm just going to put it in this box and pretend that that wasn't even me, and just kind of disassociate from it. And then it's like, well, have you looked at the way you interact with new people that you meet, or have you looked at the way you interact with family members or close relationships, or when you do find someone that you end up developing a relationship with, why it's difficult to maintain, and you put some of those pieces back together of just a difficulty with coping with a lot of the trauma. And I think a lot of that...
It's easier to disassociate than
it's a lot easier to
disassociate. Like say, yeah, this was really awful and it was really hard.
Yeah, I'm the queen of that for sure. I think that I've always been, in talking to a therapist, I minimize everything. And I also say it's not as bad as other people's stuff. Like, this is minimal. But I've come to realize, and especially working with other clients, that your trauma is your trauma regardless of how significant, how severe, like, what the situation is. But I really, and a lot of times, obviously this isn't childhood, but in my active addiction, I had a lot of trauma. And in my head, I'd be like, well, this is what happens when you use trauma, like, you have traumatic experiences, and I wouldn't have those if I hadn't used. So I definitely like disassociated, and just kind of, it's weird. Like, I would have normal conversations about it, like nothing. Like,
you're a typical nurse. You'll like minimize your own shit, but like be like 100% all supportive of anyone else's. Yeah. Like, she is nurse to the core. I've watched you evolve though in that area.
No, for sure.
You have. What do you think? Like a few years ago, it was like this revolutionary thing. Like, substance use disorder is caused by trauma. Research backs. Like, why did that take so long for like people to like? I mean, we knew. We all knew. Yeah.
Right.
Like, I don't think I would have gone down the path I would have went down if I wasn't sexually abused as a child. My sister wasn't kidnapped in front of me. My mom was domestically, like, all those things happened from 4 to 7. That fundamentally changed the path of my life. Right. So why do you think that, like, it took so long to get to that kind of obvious answer?
It's interesting because I think there's been such this knowledge of what emotional regulation and becoming overwhelmed and distress tolerance has really shifted in the mindfulness and everything. And to your point, you would be shocked to think, why did it take that long to see that substance use was kind of the response to difficulty with navigating uncomfortable emotions? And it's so closely connected. And like you said, once you put those pieces back together, everything starts to make sense. And then it's a lot easier to go to the meetings and make the connections in recovery, where a lot of people are really adverse to that, especially they don't really connect with it. They feel different about it. And then once you start realizing, oh, this is why it's difficult to make those releases, this is why it's difficult to kind of accept some of these things, it's easier to work backward and then forward. And I think even for me, just looking at my life and so much understanding that I have, similar to what you're talking about, where, you know, I was 9 and that was kind of the first time that I had navigated really a difficult moment. And my parents are separated. And so every summer I'd be with my dad in New York.
They're still separated?
My mom and stepdad ended up becoming separated. So so I have like my family tree starts
I have a
growing larger at the top. And so my mom and dad separated, you know, when I was born. And so I would go to New York every summer as any, you know, child of separated parents. And so when I was with him, he was in this accident, something, you know, from a building fell on him. He was in a coma for, you know, months and months and had to learn how to walk and talk. And he still, you know, missing part of his brain. And so as a 9-year-old, you don't really know what any of that is. And just like any other trauma, right? And so no idea how to process, no idea how to talk about it, and difficulty really putting pieces together. And then that was summer of 01, and then 9/11 happens. And so then I really start questioning, you know, you grow up and people talk about God and religion. I'm like, well, where the hell is this guy if all of this just happened in a
God wouldn't do that to my dad and wouldn't do that to all these innocent people.
Right.
It just played into that.
Right. So in a 3-month window, you're like, where the hell is this guy that everyone's promising me exists and he wouldn't do these things? And so it really just turned into me, at the time, no idea that I was this depressed, you know, miserable outlook on life, nihilistic viewpoint. I'm 9 years old, 10 years old.
Right.
Looking back, I'm like, oh, that's why I was failing 4th and 5th grade. Like, what 9, 10-year-old fails 4th and 5th grade? And looking
troubled
back,
ones that are hurting.
Exactly.
You know?
And so looking back, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something where, unless I went through my own journey that I've gone through, unless I was helping other people out, I would have never seen that. And then, of course, everything spins into the next year. We're troubled in elementary school, troubled in middle school, and then high school. All of a sudden, people are like, oh, have you smoked weed before? No, you smoke weed, you realize this kind of feels a lot better than I normally feel.
It takes a little bit of a bit of pressure off.
And then
you find you fit in a little bit with people.
Right.
You know?
And then later on, it's, oh, wow, opiates and Xanax, that's how I'm supposed to feel all the time.
Yeah, this is great.
This is amazing.
I can keep drinking if I do a little cocaine.
Right, exactly. You say, this is how the world is supposed to feel. The sun's shiner, or the sun shines a little bit brighter, things are a little bit happier, everything. This is amazing. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, that, like you said, where once that starts to happen and you find yourself in those types of situations and populations, then it spins out of control where you end up at a treatment facility, 20-something years old, 30-something years old. I'm your therapist, and you're like, fuck this guy. And I'm just sitting over there like, hey, man, what's going on? How you doing?
Yeah.
And he doesn't know what I went through.
I was like you as a therapist, though. I didn't have you as a therapist.
I would have probably mother effed you the first month and a half, you know, maybe punched you. No, I only punched a client. I didn't punch a therapist. I
was threatened a lot of times because I ran the anger group where I worked.
Yeah.
So the amount of people that would get in my face and be like, I'm going to punch you in the fucking, like in Step Brothers.
You're like, why wish you would? I wish you would.
Well, I would just sit there like this. Like, all right, man.
He doesn't really say anything.
I had worked in South County for 2 years prior to working.
You don't react
there. So I had been bit and tackled. And
I've been there as a patient.
Exactly. And so, nothing had fazed me at that point. And I think that helped in terms of people being like, all right, I threatened this guy. He didn't flinch. And I guess I'll talk to him about it. I guess I'll talk about all my childhood trauma.
Well, if the South County person didn't hurt you, I don't think the little bougie, rich boy that thought he was a gangster thought was going to
The cul-de-sac gangster was the term that was thrown around a lot over there.
Yeah. I feel like that was me. I had a cul-de-sac. I was pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And I think as we're both able to share, you don't see this until a lot later. And a lot of times in the phase that you're in, whether it's substance use related or not, or whether it spins into some sort of personality flaw or the way that you kind of put up walls and have difficulty making relationships, or I see on the inverse, a lot of people will just focus solely on work. And so
there's so many ways to
so many ways to detach.
Food,
Yeah.
shopping, gambling, goals. Even like I lost myself for 4 years on focusing on goals. I didn't feel
Right.
like we can turn even something good into something bad.
Right.
To detach and decompress.
And I think that's where everyone started to take a look back to and I promised I tried not to be long-winded, and here I am being long-winded.
We're chiming in. You're bantering. You're bantering.
Back to the original question is, I think that's where a lot of this taking a look at what trauma means and how it connects to why it's the basis of to me, the basis of almost all therapy now. That's why I know EMDR has been so popular. Recently, I know mindfulness has been so popular. And I think it really is that connection that everyone's really able to make where, oh, okay, I really went through a lot of things that changed the way I view myself in the world. Once I start unpacking some of that and taking a look and connecting with my younger self, now I feel, for lack of a better word, weird realizing that I'm doing all these things because of that.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, I mean, would I want to go through what I went through? Would I put myself through that as like little Amanda or teenage Amanda? No, I think nobody should ever have to go through what I went through, but I can give love and compassion to those versions of myself today. Right. And as to where I felt like I was broken, dirty, damaged, like all these things, and you like you questioning God, like, why do these things happen to me? Why do they happen to an innocent child? Like, it's not right. And it's this world. I do notice too that once like one trauma happens, then when you get a new one, they all like to hang out together.
Oh, yeah.
And come play.
Yeah.
It's kind of like even if I'm in a bad mood or I have something going on, then this will come back in. And my therapist is like, just handle the one thing that's here right now. Don't let everything come in the hula hoop.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need that.
Like, I love therapy. Like, I look forward to it every single week. I've been in therapy on and off since I was 7 years old. I didn't wait till middle school or high school to try drugs. I've tried pot in 4th grade.
A little bit
Wild,
yeah,
right?
4th grade. Wait, how old are you in 4th grade?
9.
Oh.
A 13-year-old was in 5th grade and brought it to the birthday party. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was already ready to check out,
Yeah, of course. And it's interesting because one of the things that I think gets the most reaction in therapy is I ask people to answer that why question. So you say, why did this happen to me? Why does this happen to a child? And a lot of times people just ask a rhetorical question, but somewhere in your subconscious, you have the answer. You just don't say it out loud because it's one of the most uncomfortable things to say out loud. And all the negative things that you say about yourself, that's the answer that you have, right? It's the theory that you have is, oh, I'm damaged or I'm, doomed or life is supposed to be horrible for me.
I'm worthless.
I'm worthless.
Yeah.
that was a core belief. And it was a good one because it gave me I didn't have to be accountable. Or
Yeah, you could do whatever you wanted.
This is it. Yeah.
Right,
Like, this is who I am.
Yeah, and it's easy to rip and run because
And it's true though, because I've been at like psych hospitals where people are there for 30 years and they went through things I went through and they're stuck like that forever. Like I could, like that one forensic one I went to in Miami, like that could have been me.
Yeah.
Or it could have been stuck in South County. Like
Right.
it's real, but it doesn't mean I've been given a chance.
Right. And I think once you're able to answer those why questions, once you're able to get to that core belief, which is the job of a therapist, is to help you unlock that core belief. Once you say it out loud and you sit with that discomfort, it becomes a little bit easier to take that deep breath and say, you know what, maybe I don't want to believe that anymore. Maybe that's not true anymore. And the fact that I said it out loud in a room with some guy who is sitting there wearing a, $2 thrifted collared shirt. Maybe
I like that shirt. It's a good shirt.
Thank you. This is one of, I wore it.
That's
This
a
one's
$2
one of my
thrifted
favorite.
one?
I thrift all my shirts that I wear.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's a thrift
I'm
one.
very proud of it.
I think that's pretty cool.
But when you say it to a guy who's sitting there in a $2 shirt, you're like, no, I kind of sound silly. Where I've been ruining my life for the last, decade or two because I have this belief. And I said it to this guy, and he's just sitting there like, all right, like, what do you want to do about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, it's like all that, you know how to do. And it's like giving yourself grace like that. That's how we got through. That's how we coped. So how did you, like going back to your dad, like how did you learn to navigate through some of that? Or did you?
I think it's one of those things where it's hard to have it in the past tense because I think it's an ongoing process
Still
every
here.
day.
Yeah.
And I think you both can agree. I think anyone that you ask can agree that working through these belief systems that you have is an ongoing process. On the days where now that it's back into the mid 70s and, life is good and I'm happy, I don't even think about it. But on the days where it's cold and
Rainy,
I didn't go to the gym the day before, and Sarah's, texting me, asking me why I didn't go to the
okay?
gym.
Yeah.
Right. And, I didn't do laundry and everything. And Gab's wondering why my clothes are all over the house. On those days, obviously, it's harder for me to see through some of these things. And so I think it's definitely an everyday process. There's days that it becomes easier. I think one of the things that definitely was one of the strongest things that helped me is realizing, and it's the phrase that's real popular, is that I wasn't terminally unique. And I don't know when it happened for me, and I don't think anyone can really ever pinpoint, but there's so many people that have this idea that they're terminally unique, where they're the only person on earth that's had the experience that they had. And to some extent that's true.
Right.
But I think you scale back from that and say, well, everyone deals with discomfort. Everyone has to learn how to regulate. And for me, it was maybe around 24, 25 where I had accepted, okay, I never learned along the way, to no one's fault but my own. And I always say blaming versus understanding. I stopped blaming people and I started understanding that they just didn't know. So for my parents, right, my mom was a Russian immigrant, and my grandma, I love her to death, but my grandma was raised in a communist country.
My grandma was from Russia. She was rescued from the Russian concentration camps by my grandfather, who was an Italian soldier.
Oh,
When she was
I didn't know
17
that.
and he was 18.
I remember you shared that with me, and it's badass. And same,
But she was
Tough.
and same on
mess with her.
Right, same on my side of the family, where my parents came here in their 20s, and so growing up in a communist country, any problem that I had coming home, school was difficult. I got bullied. This happened. Well, the KGB wasn't after you. And
When I was your age, I used to walk barefoot 18 miles in the snow.
right. But it was true in Russia. That's the difference.
Actually,
Yeah, it wasn't a lie. It was 100%
Yeah, that wasn't in
accurate.
America. It might have not been true. In Soviet Union, it was definitely
Very
true.
Yeah, it definitely happened.
And so I made the shift from blaming to understanding, where I just said, I understand that a lot of these resources and tools I never got, and I don't want to live that way anymore. I want to do things differently. And also at the time, pursuing a career in mental health counseling, I'm seeing all these things that really apply to me, and especially cracking open the DSM and looking at personality sort of stuff. I'm like,
That might be me. I might have a little bit of that.
Maybe I should be less on the cluster B side of things.
Yeah.
Listen, any of us that work in any kind of realm of behavioral health, something brought us here. Like, it's not just by accident, right? We didn't come here and be like, oh, hey, guess what? I want to go through a lot of shit and then help other people. But it sounds like you found some of your healing in your education and your work and understanding, and also accepting that your parents did the best they could. Like, I blame my mom for a long time. My mother was abused as a child by her mother, who was an alcoholic, lost her sister to alcoholism, and then was domestically abused by my abuser. My mom was terrified for her life, her whole life. Yeah. She could not choose at a point, right? But when she found I was being molested, then she did get us away. But they do the best with, and they're also learning the first time. Like, me as a mom of a 19-year-old and a 12-year-old, I'm just learning. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to parent an adult. I'm learning.
Right. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with is to get to that place of understanding, because then you could take action. And one of the things that I've heard often, especially with trauma, is a lot of the things that you went through can be one of your greatest assets once you heal from it.
Absolutely.
And so to your point about a lot of people in the field that have gone through a lot, those are the ones that once they've healed, they really can help that population.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so for me, working with adolescents, I mean, the days that I work with adolescents that I've seen really shift, I mean, those are days where I'm leaving the office and I'm in a great mood, because a lot of times, and myself included, it's okay, well, he's not doing the assignments, he's acting out in class, he's, whatever, he's in middle school and we don't know what to do with him. And, well, has anyone asked him how he's doing? Has anyone asked him what's wrong? Or are we just saying something's wrong with the way that he's behaving? And that's one of the moments that I enjoy, is talking to the, 13, 15, 17-year-olds who are like, well, this is kind of what goes on in my head, and these are the anxieties that I have.
And you're probably the first person ever asked them that, or even care that they have like a say in this. Like, kids aren't acting like that for no reason.
Yeah,
there's something going.
But parents just want to fix it.
Yeah.
Right.
Here, fix my kid.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Something's wrong with him. He's acting out.
But it can't be anything to do with anything that's gone on. Listen, and my daughter, the day that I told her that I was divorcing her dad, she saw my friend that was a therapist that same day, and then she got her in with someone she was friends with, and she was there for every week for a year. I brought her to East Boca from Westlake Worth every single week because I wanted her to have that support, and I couldn't do it. She was mad at me. You know, and she was hurt. So, but like, you know, but like to provide, like we might not all know all the answers as the parents, but we can help.
Right.
And put people in place that may have the answers or be able to support and hear them.
And I think that's one of the things that's really difficult too, is to your point, Sarah, right? Is just fix them and just try to do it versus just providing that space of understanding. And even that's uncomfortable to ask a kid, well, what's wrong versus just do this and you'll feel better. Yeah. It creates discomfort. It's kind of, you know, every time you're at the, I don't know, grocery store and someone's like, hey, how's it going? You just say good.
Good, yeah.
But if you're like, oh, you know, I got a flat tire and, you know, this is what's
my
going on.
wife's leaving me.
I actually don't, though. If I'm not, I'm like, I'm not good.
Oh, you're honest, yeah.
I'm still too honest.
See, I don't make eye contact, so no one asks me how I'm doing.
Gab hates it, but I'll give them like a little synopsis
snippet,
of my day. I'm like,
my
it's been a good
kids
day
hate
so
it.
far. You know, I got this going on later. What are you up to? And Gab's like, they don't care about your life.
No.
They're just saying, how's everything?
Because that's what you're supposed to say.
Well, my kids are always like, Mom, you talk so much to everybody everywhere. I'm like, sorry, guys, that's who I am. You're not going to change it. Accept it, you know?
Right.
But it's just
that's
the
how
way
I
it
am
is.
too. And I think those moments where I notice an adolescent is talking about something either for the first time or comfortable enough to kind of say something that's really difficult to say, maybe not for the first time, but just in a therapeutic environment, that's where I've seen the most shift. And then it's interesting too, because working with adolescents and now having done it, my own practice for about 3 years, is I'll see different stages in life where a lot of times working with someone that's a sophomore, junior in high school, and no one knows what the future holds and the parents don't think they're going to make it to college, where after a few years of just really navigating anxiety, navigating depression, talking about trauma, and then they go to college. And for me, it's one of those things where in that moment, I always appreciate when they're appreciative of the work that we did.
For sure.
Where it's so easy for life to turn out differently.
Totally.
It's so easy to say, well, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm going to turn to maladaptive coping strategies, and then, you know, who cares about college? I'm going to figure out something else in life.
Yeah.
And then that's when all of a sudden it spins into you're 25 years old and you have no idea how you got to where you got to in life.
Yeah.
And so that's, I really always appreciate the end of the school year and the start of the school year, because that's when I'll get the phone calls and the text messages from former clients that are like, hey, man,
that's
I was
awesome.
yeah.
Like I never, so my son was like, he's very different than me and my daughter. He was always very like standoffish. He never wanted to try new things. He like struggled in school at elementary, middle school. I always got him a tutor. I just felt like he learned differently, but the school system said he was behind, but now he ended up catching up, right? That's just, they're all different. And, you know, so I always had to push him and encourage him. But when it came to like everyone when he was graduating, what is he going to do? Where is he going to college? And I'm like, honestly, like he doesn't know yet. And like, I'm totally okay with that for him. I had him go meet with different people to explore what was like interesting to him and let him figure it out and let him pick. And he's happy and feels fulfilled that way. Like, but I had to go through so much that I had to go through to be able to show up like that as a mom.
Yeah.
Which is huge because a lot of parents struggle with that. I have kids that I work with, they're sophomores, freshmen in high school, and parents are like, well, his PSAT score was only a 950, and we don't know if that's going to mean he's going to do this. But the grandparent, I'm like,
No,
guys,
I
we have 4, we don't even know where we're going to be in 4 years.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath. We'll figure it. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Exactly.
And I know that really enrages some parents. I'm like, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, because they want the answers and they want to know what's happening and they want the plan.
That's their own shit.
That's their own shit
That's
versus
nothing
just
to
sitting
say.
back and saying, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Because what's the goal of a parent, like with their kid, is to be happy?
Mine's to be happy. And honestly, like I always told Merrick, I was like, I want you to be able to like live a good life and take care of yourself. But I want you to do what makes you happy. I don't want you to hate what you do. But like
Exactly.
I don't want you to struggle, because I've struggled. I've been like hood poor. So like I don't want my son to ever have to go through that. So I try to, you know, like put a
No,
little
I think
hustle
you
on
for
him.
sure did that right. I think that, and I watched a podcast recently about like happiness of children and like what is more happy than like a 2 or 3 year old kid, right? The innocence, you know.
Well, your world.
Yeah, like day to day, like they don't care. They're happy playing with dirt, you know? But like in our heads, maybe because of situations we've had or situations that we didn't have, we have this idea that that's happiness because we didn't get it or we did do it that way.
I
So
think
kind of
so many
pushing
parents-
that.
So many parents get stuck in that.
Exactly. And then what does that do to their kid though? You know, because maybe that's not what they want to do, or maybe they feel pressure to do that, you know, or they they just can't do it, and it kind of, does that then bring happiness to their children?
No. To them, they think it's going to, but it might not even do that for them.
Right.
Yeah, so
Because,
it's really
with
more so
Merrick,
accepting.
It didn't even hit me about like him graduating high school, what a big deal that was, because his graduation was the first high school graduation I'd ever been to. I didn't graduate.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't even like realize that until he was like at that moment. So that was kind of cool that like I wasn't like freaking out, so it's definitely, we're all works in progress.
Right.
sure.
And it's interesting because you both talk about the same thing, which is a lot of times if you never dealt with it yourself and then you see it with your kid, you don't know how to navigate that. And so whether it's playing in dirt and how do you support them and to be happy, or how do you support them at their high school graduation if you've never been, I think so much of that turns into that inner child work where that's a lot of what the adults that I work with that went through childhood trauma and are struggling is talking to yourself as a kid. How do you parentify yourself where you look back and what would you say to that kid? How would you navigate that? Where once they're able to figure that out, they've said their relationships with their kids become a lot different. Yeah. And even working in treatment where I worked, it was a 3-month minimum. So you'd have people coming in and they'd be without their kids for 3, 4, 5 months. And then it was, well, I don't know how to be back in their life. And a lot of the work of looking at yourself as a child, not disassociating and putting everything in a box and connecting with it turned into, oh, okay, this is the support that they need playing with the dirt. This is the support that they need going through a divorce. This is the support they need in this. And it's a really interesting process where I think it's that understanding where, okay, just because I didn't get this, just because I didn't develop the language at a young age, I'm not just going to put my hands up and give up. I'm going to learn. And that's one of the hardest things people can do is going to therapy and working on themselves and saying, I really don't know how to properly support the people around me or myself.
Totally. No, and I think that's just such a interesting thing to like hone in on. I don't think it's talked about enough. So like because we have a limited amount of time and I want to make sure we circle back to this, the part with your father, like I want to know, where are you guys at today? Like where has it transitioned to from like being that child that didn't know how to handle it to where you are today? Just so people can kind of understand like how things can come full circle.
I think it was something where I really was able to look at myself and obviously me being there was traumatic in that sense, but also it wasn't my story to tell, right? And I think that happens a lot of times too, is things happen around us that we kind of absorb in a certain way. And I was able to do the opposite of what I had been doing, right? Questioning purpose, questioning meaning. And I realized, well, how lucky am I to have my health? How lucky am I to be in the situation that I am where I can help people? Mm-hmm. And it was really this massive shift from this kind of anger, this frustration, this negative, dark outlook of the world to a place of gratitude. And I think that was such a huge shift for me. And I know that that's such a big process in the 12 steps is going through all these things that you view one way and shifting it to kind of have more of this positive outlook. Yeah. And so me and him have a good relationship now. I think, again, there's still limitations to him. But we do talk. He's still in New York. We do talk relatively often. I go up there about once a year. And I think it's one of those things where I'm appreciative that he is still here. I'm appreciative that he is able to see the journey that I'm on. And also I appreciate that this is the position that I'm in, where before I never viewed things that way. For me, it was just everything sucks and everything's doom and gloom.
I can totally see you like that. Just because you have like the dark sense of humor. Sucks. I could see that flip side. Just like I'm sure you could see me being like a psychopath. But, I can say honestly now that like I've realized in the past few years, like at the beginning of my healing journey, my biggest struggles were relationships with people closest to me. My mom and I are the closest we've ever been. She actually told me the other day that I'm the only person in this world that she feels fully safe with, that she can come to and doesn't judge her and loves her and she trusts. And I just started crying because I didn't expect it. But like that we can offer that to like, our family as being the problem child, the one that made her life hell, you know, like, and then when I got into recovery, was so judgmental of her and so mean and blaming and just that full circle. I love that story with you, with your father. I think that's really beautiful. I think that's going to help people. So anything you would like to touch on? Unfortunately, we only do short episodes. I think Sarah and I could talk to you for probably like 2 hours. Yeah. Because you're fun. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Is there anything that you would like to touch on? And then we have a little fun exercise we're going to do before we wrap.
I don't know if there's anything I want to touch on. I think, you kind of made me do the hard part of coming up with a topic for today, even though I said you could come up with it. And
this brain can't come up with anything else. It's at capacity.
No, I appreciate the conversation. I think that goes back to even what I said at the start of this is why I really do trust you both and enjoy working with you both and having shared clients is I think it's one of those things where, especially down here, there tends to be the black and white of how recovery needs to go.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that you both see the gray in it, where it's like, yeah, obviously going to meetings and going through the steps and doing all of that is vital. But you also say, well, we can also talk about emotion and process things and cry about things and really create that level of healing. Because once you do both, that's when you see the shift in people. That's when
100%.
people really.
Yeah, I agree
absolutely.
with that.
And there's just so many. I was so black and white in my way of thinking that like I, lost too many people, and then in doing this work, I couldn't be. So I wish I would have known back then what I know now, right? But I'm so grateful I do have that lens of meeting people with non-judgment. I was a judgmental bitch, Oh yeah, my early recovery. If you didn't do this, you're gonna die.
She actually scared me when I first met her.
I was her sponsor.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
I'd be scared of a man too.
I know. Yeah.
A man
Now
can
I'm
be
not.
intimidating.
No, now I'm not. But yeah, definitely.
You're not
initially.
ever? We got to shake a little healthy fear back into you.
No, it's respect.
Oh, I
right?
like that. Okay, yeah.
There's no,
I like my
there's no
son.
fear. There's respect.
I like my son to have a little healthy fear.
Oh no, I don't want to fear anybody.
I want my son and my daughter a little bit, a little healthy.
Well,
fear.
that's your kids. Yeah, I don't want to be that way.
No, I don't want you to scare me.
Sometimes she is like my mother, but I don't want you to be my mom. I already have a mom.
Like you, we mother each other, but
Yeah.
Okay, so Ben, tell us something that just like first thought. Don't think about it too hard. Something that just drives you crazy, like something that people do, or like a day-to-day thing, just something that's like your like an annoyance or a peeve.
I don't like when people in conversation,
Sorry.
not work.
Sarah's alarm clock.
I was about to. Now it could be the alarm. No, I'm
it's
joking.
when people have their farm.
No,
Yeah.
what
Hey, here I am.
What I don't like is when you're talking to someone, like socially, you're like having a conversation with someone, you say something, and they're just like, you could tell they didn't hear what you said, and like, oh yeah, and you know that they didn't hear you, and what they're waiting for is for you to start talking so that they are like, oh shit, let me jump back into the conversation.
Yeah.
And me being a pot stirrer, as you both alluded to, I won't give them this is what I've been talking about.
Ooh, I like
I
it.
just
Let it
sit
go.
back and go, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we sit there because that's how much I dislike it when it's like, well, what's going on that you just checked it? We were mid conversation.
Yeah.
What if they have ADHD or problems focusing? Or
I'm accepting of these things.
okay,
But he's still not going to tell
but
you
I
what
like
he's talking about.
I like it.
Right.
Sarah, what would be yours?
That was good, Ben. Now I feel mine's
very
kind of
good.
silly.
Remember trauma.
See,
Pep
there
peeve,
it is.
same.
There it
There it
is.
is.
Still got it. All right. So, when it says like, do not park here, or like I think I've talked about this before. This is a little bit different now. I've done it when it's like in-store pickup, right? Like curbside, and you're not curbside, like you're just lazy. It's when I live in a cul-de-sac now. And it says like, do not park on lawn, and they still park on the lawn. And the reason why it's annoying is because the trash guy comes, but they're blocking your driveway. So it's selfish because then your trash doesn't get picked up. So that's kind of my annoyance.
This has been bothering you for weeks. This is
It's the
old
same
one.
car. It's
Oh,
a
okay.
Mercedes,
Okay.
black, and it's parks out there every day.
See, and this is how my brain's working is where with Sarah, I could tell when you park in the curbside pickup and you're not curbside, or the Mercedes being parked, it comes from a place of entitlement. And so that you dislike. For myself, I psychoanalyze myself all the time.
No,
for
that's
me,
good.
I don't like feeling like I'm not heard, obviously. I mean, we just spent the last half hour talking. So I can't turn my brain off.
Yeah, like I want to knock on the window and be like, do you think you're that important?
Yeah.
Park in a driveway like a normal person,
Okay, mine.
yours?
I've had many over the years because I started doing this with Blake. I guess maybe it's kind of stems from yours and a little bit of yours, but like people just being genuine. Like, if you are an asshole, just show that you're an asshole. If you don't like somebody, just don't like play, be authentic. And it's just, life is too short. There's just no time to waste with that. Like, I wasted too many years with enmeshment in the field, enmeshment in my personal life. And like, I just don't have time for bullshit. Either you have something that you want to bring to the table, which could be just kindness and being genuine, or stay away. That's my.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
Just be an asshole.
Yeah.
If
Like,
you're
if you're an
If
asshole, just
actually
be an asshole.
just
Yeah.
be an asshole.
I love that. I'd rather that than the sneak attack. When you
Right.
think they play
All of
this
a sudden,
good
boom.
person, and then all of a sudden it's like, I much prefer the flat out narcissist than the covert.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I like that.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Ben,
Yes,
for coming
thank
on.
you.
We'll have you as a repeat guest for sure. I'd love to have you back.
Flattered. I
And I'll do.
appreciate it.
Have you done my live with me? We'll have you do that.
No, he hasn't.
Okay, so we got things to do. We had things to do with Ben T for many, many years in our community. Look forward to partnering with you.
Oh, wait, how do you find Ben?
How do you find Ben?
You can find Ben. I have a unique last name, so I just tell people Taratuta Counseling, Ben Taratuta,
How do you spell Taratuta?
Taratuta.
Okay.
You've never spelled it right once.
And
I know she
say it
doesn't.
right.
She never will.
but
I want to
now-
say it's Tortuga.
But now
I'm
it's
going
turned
to
into
Tortuga Islands, and I'm going snorkeling at Tortuga. I
Right.
can't get it out of my
But
head.
now it's turned into a joke where now I notice she spells it differently every time. So every
purpose.
invite that I get, it's a different
Say it
version.
again. Let's say it together.
Taratuta.
Taratuta.
I feel like it's not that hard.
It is for me. I don't, because I think Tortuga
You're not
Island.
the only one, though.
Taratuta.
I have friends that I've known them for 15 years, and my last name is saved incorrectly in their phone.
So you just don't care.
And I don't
We're gonna
want them to
fix it
change
before you leave. Yeah. Okay, so they can find you. And what about Instagram or anything? Do you do
I
that?
don't use the Instagram.
Okay.
I have one.
You're a big liker and a big
I do
viewer.
like thinking things.
And you're a big liker on LinkedIn too.
I do like
You're a
liking
liker.
things.
Yeah.
You're a liker too.
Yeah, I only
She's a
like,
creeper
I don't
liker.
post. Yeah. Share.
Okay, and then this podcast is powered by Next Level Recovery Associates. You can find us at nextlevelra.com. You can find me, Amanda Marino, on all different outlets. I'm all over the place on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And how do people find you, Miss Sarah?
I changed my Instagram so people can find me easier.
wow.
It's Sarah Ellen Frias.
Oh, nice.
I couldn't remember what it was before. Remember, it was like Sarah.E.F. and then like it was too much. So I
Mine's
changed
just
it.
Amanda Marino official on everything.
Yeah,
so
that's
that's
easy.
kind of easy. And then I have my new website for my speaking. I'll have to send you my
AmandaMarinoSpeaks.com.
Interesting.
It's nice.
Yeah. So
Exciting
check out
things.
Next Level Recovery Associates, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.